Ooh, what up? No, it is another Tuesday, and it is time for the Knockouts, the 2023 edition. And tonight we're bringing you our picks for the combat sports portion of things. But before we get to that, I got to tell you the people that are bringing you this fine episode, and that's people at Potter's Tree Service. If you're in need for tree removal, tree trimming, chipping service, storm damage cleanup, walnut logging, or lot clearing, make sure you hit up the homies at Potter's Tree Service. But hey, I can tell you that flapping my gums, but why don't I show you what Potter's Tree Service can do, and then we'll get to the knockouts for 2023.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
And just like that, it's time for another edition of the Knockouts. This time it's the 2023 edition. We're back at it before we close out 2023. J-Bone, Corey, how the fuck are you?
I'm good, man. Christmas was good. Santa Claus, we had to put Santa Claus in a guillotine for coming down the chimney and shit at the wrong time of the night. But it's all good. We're here. We got presents. Shit, I'm ready to go, man. Ready to bring in 2024. Corey's muted.
Corey, how the fuck was your Christmas? Corey, you're muted.
Oh, good. Just realized.
A day! First time today. Just
it'll
kidding.
happen again. Had a good Christmas, man. Glad to be back at it. Glad to kind of be over with the whole festivities and the running around and all that the Christmas spirit brings. But other than that, man, had a good time. Kids were smiling at the end of the day, and that's what mattered, right?
That's right. That's right.
Oh yeah, I can't complain. My my two little dudes
got the coolest fucking shirt in Christmas history.
Bro, I'm gonna be ready for a boiler room brawl come Tampa.
Tell them about your shirt.
So shout out to Roosevelt's. I would love a sponsorship for this show because I will wear one to every show gladly. But I have acquired some Royal Rumble gear, so hopefully you need to let WWE know that you want to see us in the press conference again, because if I get in the Royal Rumble press conference, I am guaranteed to be the best dressed motherfucker in there, because I'm going to be rocking that Undertaker Mankind Boiler Room Brawl joint. Going to be looking like I could audition for the Judgment Day like R-Truth. But we'll talk about the Judgment Day and R-Truth and all that shit come Thursday, because it's time for the Knockouts 2023 edition, Pro Wrestling edition, and Devin's going to be joining us. Devin's going to make his return to the show. Devin will be with us this Thursday, 9 p.m., to make some picks for the Knockouts. And for all of you guys that are in the comments, I need to know who your guys' picks are going to be for these things. So please make sure that you're commenting them on our social medias. Make sure you're following us all those places. But without any further ado, we got to talk about the combat sports portion of the show. So with that being said, y'all two can pick the first category.
Oh, Corey, you pick the first one.
Well, since I'm kind of curious and I feel like it's an interesting way to start, Kyle had brought it up before the actual live button here, what the event of the year was. I feel like let's take it that direction first.
Okay, well, you pick the category. You got to say yours first.
Oh, I'm leading the dance as well.
Yeah,
right,
you pick the category. You go first.
Because it meant so much to me personally, and I kind of like how J-Bone was saying, I partially struggled a bit with my pick because I felt like maybe there was bigger moments in the sport this year. But because of what the impact was to me and what it felt like to finally be able to say in my time that we have a Michigan zone MMA champ, a 283, Jamal Hill winning the belt down in Brazil and beating Glover Teixeira. That was my event of the year for what it left me with in the feelings for the months to come. So that's why I'm leading in that direction. We had an amazing night of fights. Let me get them pulled back up here. I had them pulled up just a minute ago, but of course my stoner ass forgot the card. But that event though, it really did, man. What it meant to have Hill as now somebody that I can say, hey dude, I've met this guy in person. He was nothing but nice and gracious with his time. He stood at the lights out event and shook everybody's hand, and it's just like he seems like a real down to earth guy, and then to see him have his moment in kind of a here, hurry up and let's kind of make up for what was essentially a dud in the draw that was the vacant title fight before that. It just was big for me.
All right, J-Bone, who you got?
I like that a lot, actually. I'm glad you went into detail there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
What UFC is that, Corey?
That was 283, I believe,
that was
right?
283, and our co-main was Brandon Moreno beating Figueiredo.
Oh, 4.
Yeah, 283. That was Figueiredo beating Moreno. That was Gilbert Burns beating Neil Magny. Jessica Andrade beating Lauren Murphy, and Johnny Walker beating Paul Craig. So it was a fun night of fights. I do remember everything.
What month was that in? I feel like that was so long
digging
ago.
back into the card, but that main star on top of the tree is what really did it for me on that one.
What month was that?
It was January. Dug all the way back to the beginning of the year.
That's the cool thing about the MMA stuff, though. Like, you sit there and you think about all the stuff that you watched all year. It's like,
is my mic not working great?
We've seen some classics at the beginning of the year that we forgot about. You know what I mean? So I don't know. All right, it's my turn, right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna go back. It was UFC 285. John Jones versus Cyril Gane. Reason I'm doing that, one, because I won a lot of money that night, but two, that one had a lot of star-studded fighters on it, and that particular heavyweight championship fight was the comeback for John Jones, right? This was the one that was going to let us know if he was legit pound for pound the best ever to do this, or if his whole past kind of caught up with him, right, against Gane. And he went out there and dominated in what, a minute? Was it just over a minute? Something like that. I don't really remember, but in a minute, choked him out. Done for, dude. John Jones cements his legacy as the greatest of all time at the heavyweight division too. He stepped up to fight at heavyweight, which is a huge feat for anybody. But on the co-main event the same night, Alexa Grasso guillotines, rear naked chokes Valentina Shevchenko, something we never thought we were going to see, right? One of the GOATs go down. Huge night. The rise of Shavkat Rakhmonov I think that was a huge one. Remember the standing rear? Was it the standing rear naked? He had him in.
Mhm.
That was another one, man. That ultimately shot.
I've
him.
got a lot to say when it comes to Shavkat Rachmanov. I feel
I
like
do
he
too.
might show up for me
Yeah.
in some of these other
That-
categories, but
That
Also,
was one of the.
on that card too was the rise of Bo Nickel. That was his first
Yeah.
notable fight
Mhm.
in UFC right there, and he came out and dominated. So
That-
that card in March had a lot of future.
and that was UFC what again?
285 March.
Okay, so you got UFC 285. You had what, Corey?
283. That was
All right.
the one that I leaned the most towards. Not to jump in real quick, but that was the one I leaned the most towards for, like you say, historic implications and what it meant for the sport and stuff. So I almost went that.
Well, I still
direction
think you
myself,
didn't pick the right one, and
We didn't
neither
pick
one of
the
you
one that
picked the
Kyle
one that I picked.
I know.
Let's
The
hear it.
right one. Let's hear what Kyle has to say. It's only right if it's Kyle.
The right
Let's hear
answer
it.
was
Kyle. Let's
UFC.
hear it,
The
Kyle.
right answer was UFC 294 in Islam versus Volk. That card was electric, dude. That place, the energy in that joint in Australia was hard. It was the first time in how long they'd been in Australia. You had the main event was Islam versus Volk in what was a way better fight than any one of us expected. You had Yair versus Josh Emmett in the co-main event. You had Jack Magdalena win by rear naked choke over Randy Brown. You had Justin Tafa knock the hell out of Parker Porter. You had Jimmy Crute was versus Alonzo Menafield. That was a majority draw. But then you had Bukowskis versus Pedro. You had Kulabau versus, I'm not even going to try his last name. But the point is, the main card of this joint was off the chain. The crowd made this even better. And the fact that what we got from Volk, I would argue, is one of the most history-making performances that we've seen in MMA in quite a while, because he's done the best out of the ones that we've seen go up for the potential champ thing. If you think about it, like when Izzy went up to go fight Jan, looked like shit. I love Izzy, but he looked like shit. You look at, I mean, you haven't had one where it's really worked out well, really, since Connor did it. You know, really, that's the last one that you can honestly say went up and looked good when he went to do it. So for Volk to go do that and represent himself the way he did, obviously in the fight after that, when he got the rematch, it didn't look as good, but he also took that on short notice and didn't get to really train for that. So in my opinion, for what you had as far as the history of what Volk was getting to do against Islam, and the fact that he showed Islam's first vulnerability in the cage as well. When you consider at that point, nobody had even really been close to touching him. And not only did somebody get close to touching him, it's a guy who is naturally fighting at 145 and Islam is naturally bigger than, and he's being able to stick up with him with the wrestling. I'm not saying he out wrestled him by any means.
This was 284, right?
It's 294. Or yeah, 284. Sorry, 284. He was right.
So that would have been February, right?
No.
Well, that was the
I
second. That was the second one.
So look at that. So look at
I
that.
agree with
You got January, you got February, I got March. So we're gonna agree that the best of the UFC this year was in the early 2023.
I mean, if my pick
hard
wasn't
to
going to
say,
be this
though.
one, dude, you could have put an argument up for that one that they just had as well. So I'm not going to sit here and make like there wasn't other good fights, because that last card that they just put together, especially for like the surprise factor with some of the knockouts, like what we saw from Josh Emmett over Bryce Mitchell, and some of the other stuff we saw in that card. I would, if I wasn't going to pick that one, I may have picked that one. But for me, the overall stakes, the way the crowd was, it was the first time they'd been over in Australia in how long?
Yeah.
That was a banger for me.
Hard to argue.
I still
I mean,
feel like
all of us have valid points. So it's hard to argue these, man.
It's 2 or 3. Is as much as that Volk performance, I feel like was the Volk performance is what really showcased on that night. But that being said, I feel like you said, the crowd and stuff really made a huge deal of that. I feel like even you could point towards that MSG card they just had too, though, that with Tom Aspinall and Pereira winning his now second belt. I feel like that was even there. I feel like there was a lot of potential options. I feel like there was no right answer in this one. I feel like, especially like in my pick, it was based upon emotions. Like I said, I mean, there was
Yeah, I
way
mean, it's,
more
it's a
stuff
different
that,
taste for everybody, right? I mean,
yeah,
we all have different acquired tastes on what we want to see in fights and what gets us to watch those fights. So I guess that's the beauty of it, though. You know what I mean? There's a little something for everybody in MMA. So it's hard to.
Any of you guys who are watching, if you guys got any picks where what your favorite UFC card of the year was, let us know in the comments.
who's picking the next one?
All right, J-Bone, you're next.
Want me to pick one? Let me see what's next in the. Let's do. We'll get this one out of the way. Let's do BKFC Fighter of the Year, male and female.
All right, you go first.
You want me to go first? Male Fighter of the Year. There's so many. So fan worthy pick would have to pick Platinum Mike Perry, I would think. But for me, I like to go by records, and I'm gonna pick Luis Palomino. The guy's 9-0 in BKFC, 9 straight. It's hard to argue that, man. Maybe he's not getting the best of notability on the mainstream when it comes to what's being pushed BKFC wise, but you got to give it to the man. He's undefeated, and it's hard. Numbers don't lie. Am I right, gentlemen? So in this case, not taking anything from Mike Perry, but for me personally, I'm going to take Palomino. Am I picking the women's right now, or are we going to go around the board first? Let's do men's first, and we'll come back around to the women. Cool.
Okay.
I like the way you did that with the whole picking Perry as, like you said, like everybody knows that's like who won the year in bare knuckle, right? But for people like us who have had, champs and many of their athletes now on the show, I feel like we have a little bit of more to say about it, I guess you could say. And I don't know, man. Digging into some of their champs and stuff, some of them like Rickles, right? He had an amazing year, or not Rickles.
I was gonna say Rickles is not champion.
Hold on, let me pull it up. Let me get his name right so I'm not fucking this up. Oh, Dave Mundell. I don't know why I said it.
Where'd you get Dave Rickles and Dave Mundell?
Faces, names. I'm terrible. Yeah, but I would say his victory over yet again forgetting his name, but the Marine Mike Richmond.
Mike Richmond.
Yeah, his victory over him and his kind of ascension towards his now crowning moment and stuff, and then his defense after that. Even I feel like you could say that he's had his own year in his own. I mean, it's hard to say, man. The guy that kind of surprised me the most to now be a champion for them is John Dodson. That one surprised the shit out of me.
That surprised you? I thought Dodson was going to be a problem off rip just because of his speed, and he's just ran through people.
Well, that's where we're saying, like, guys that maybe don't get the credit, not Mike Perry's of the year for BKFC. You could throw him in there as well for surprising at least me for being at this stage of his career and then coming in there and, like you say, dominating people on his way to now winning the belt. I feel like both of those are solid directions. If I'm going to pick one, I'm going to go probably Mundell because that knockout of Richmond was nasty, but I feel like both of those are solid options.
I feel like for me, there's only one right answer on this one, and I know it's like the popular pick, but I have a few reasons behind it. I think Mike Perry has to be it because he's made himself essentially the face of that company. And for him to do what he just did against Eddie Alvarez, not to say that his other 3 wins didn't mean anything, because they did, but Eddie Alvarez was tagging this dude in the first round. Like, I mean, piecing him up to the point where I'm like, man, if we go into round 2 and this keeps going that way, Mike Perry might be taking a nap. And for him to eat all that damage and then come back and break Eddie Alvarez's orbital bone like that, and to be able to get that victory like that, bro, it's hard for me not to say that, because now, I mean, obviously the King of the Violence belt is essentially the the equivalent to the UFC BMF belt. But all I'm saying here is you can't tell me that there's any one male fighter that's more of the face of that company at this point than Mike Perry. Like you just said, Corey, it totally rejuvenated his career in a lot of senses. I mean, they talk about it before every fight. You know, he had 22 MMA fights, you know, before coming over here, but to beat the names that he's beat. And like I said, I just feel like this Eddie Alvarez win is the most telling win of them all to me, because not only did he take a lot of damage like he always does, to do that over a world-class opponent like Eddie Alvarez, who showed that he can adapt well to bare knuckle fighting, I think that win speaks the most volumes for Mike Perry.
I think for Mike Perry too, it's been like obviously we've been seeing Mike Perry everywhere when it comes to BKFC, and he's only had 2 fights in 2023. Palomino's only had 1 fight in 2023, but the guys that Mike Perry is fighting, Luke Rockhold, Eddie Alvarez in 2023, those are big names to go out there and finish, man. So like I said, I know there's a different way of how they push these guys and put them to the forefront of the company and the face of the company and stuff like that, but it's hard to argue that point. You know what I mean? It's just he's the face of BKFC right now. So
yeah,
that's why I said this last win spoke so much for me, because not that, no disrespect to Luke Rockhold at all, not that Luke Rockhold wasn't a big win for Mike Perry, but Eddie Alvarez had already shown that he could adapt well to bare knuckle and that his striking was going to be just like it was what we saw in MMA. So for you to do that to somebody who not only had the name coming in, but adapted well to bare knuckle, I think makes that win have that much more credibility. Yeah. Just because, like we found out, I mean, not everybody has acclimated well to bare knuckle. So again, I think the fact that he did that over such a quality an opponent, but somebody that adapted well to it, because I mean, let's face it, granted, credit to Luke Rockhold because he did get his teeth knocked out, but like, did we ever really think that Luke Rockhold was? Did you really think that Luke Rockhold was ever going to stay in bare knuckle like long term, even if he would have won that fight?
He's not the type of guy that's built for it. But I also
Eddie Alvarez showed that dog transferred.
I mean, it's clear, right? He was already the face of the organization coming into the year and left the year undefeated with even bigger victories. So it's pretty clear, right, that he is the male athlete of the year in that particular sport. And then to factor in all the publicity that he got with the whole Logan Paul thing, that he was the backup fighter. If this whole fight doesn't happen, it's going to be him in there. You know, like, he got a ton of publicity with that. That also helped his career throughout this year as well. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with, but I like the point that you made up, J-Bone, with the secondary pick, because I feel like it was so clear. Who would be your number 2, Kyle? Because I know you can dig a number 2 into that hat.
So if I wasn't going to go with Mike Perry, like I said, a lot of my reasoning also has to do with like the impact that he's having on the company. But if I'm not going to pick Mike Perry, I would say it's got to be Lorenzo Hunt.
Yeah, that was another one I was leaning towards.
It's got to be Lorenzo Hunt, because if you don't think of Mike Perry, you think of Lorenzo Hunt. And if I'm not mistaken, he has 2 titles. He's looking to try to go get the heavyweight title. Like, I mean, I've already said before that I don't always like when the stuff breaks. I don't like when the stuff breaks out after the fight, just because I think that it looks bad for the sport. But when you're talking about what somebody does in between those ropes, dude, you can't talk BKFC and not talk Lorenzo Hunt. So if I'm not picking Mike Perry, then it's Lorenzo Hunt. But again, my reasoning for Mike Perry is just because, again, the names that he beat and this most recent win to me did the most. What up, though? Shout out to our sponsors, Potter's Tree Service. Check out that fine commercial at the beginning of this show. Asa, we're talking to BKFC Fighter of the Year. I just picked my male fighter. I said it's Mike Perry, but if I'm not picking him, I'm taking Lorenzo Hunt. But all right, so since we've all gone through the males, I will start on the female end, and bias aside, I think there's only
I just
one
got a feeling we're all going
going
to pick the same person here. I'm just going to go out and say that.
I got a feeling that the person that we're all going to pick is somebody who, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can go check out our interview with the champ, Christine Faria, because she had 2 high caliber wins over who she said was her self-admittedly toughest fight that she's had in bare knuckle thus far, and that's Rowdy Beck Rawlings. I think Beck Rawlings, or Rodriguez now, excuse me. I feel like Beck showed, like Christine said on the show, that she had made a lot of improvements since the first fight. I think she fought a lot better, Beck, the second fight. They fought all 5 rounds. Christine comes out of it with a hole in her eye and still is smiling away the whole time. You can't really get much better than her. I mean, she's been, as dominant can be. And now she's calling out like the killer of the women's division outside of Nunez, like Chris Cyborg versus Christine Faria. I need to see that happen. Shout out to Savage Sip Coffee as well. But yeah, for me, as far as female fighter of the year, it's got to be Christine Faria.
Yeah, that's a hard one to argue with, man. To take the second on that one, I mean, what other direction are you gonna go? I mean, you could potentially make the argument. I was at least like running through my head the fact that Britain Hart finally has gained her belt. She has her own division now, and she's kind of ran her course in there and looked really good doing it. But like you said with Christine Faria, she's just like the boogie woman that is also so nice once you talk to her, but you can tell she just has that killer, like she brings that mentality into the game, and it's hard to go against her. I mean, honorable note, like I say, for Britain Hart. Congrats on
another past guest of the show. If you guys are new here, we've had Britain on the show multiple times.
Yeah, but that being said, Christine Faria.
Yeah,
J-Bone, who you got?
I think that's an easy, clear cut winner right there, man. Not to mention she's been one of the better guests on this show, and she's got that killer instinct, man. Now that she's calling out Cyborg, look, this is one of those fights where I think Cyborg's got to come to her. You know what I mean? And she's gotten to that point now. Was she on a 6-fight win streak or something like that? Besides the 2 against Beck Rawlings in 2023. She's killing it in BKFC. She is the face of the any women's division, and especially BKFC. So made a huge statement in 2023. I can't wait to speak to her again. Like I said, she's been one of the better guests of this show, and I cannot wait until that Cyborg fight happens because that is going to be huge. Let's get that done.
I'm with it. I definitely want to see that fight. I think we see Cyborg inside the PFL cage, along with somebody else who you might see in the PFL cage in 2024. Did Michigan's own, Flint's own, Clarissa Shields, who we just got to talk with as well last week. So, like I said, if you're a fight fan, you're in the right place. But since I picked Jordan picked that one. I got to pick the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've done pay-per-view of the year. We've done.
I think we all should be wearing like bow ties or something for this.
We've done. We should for Thursday. That should be a thing.
Bow ties and Kangos, baby. Let's go.
You heard it. We got to get Kangos. We got to match Devin. All right. So we picked BKFC. We picked Bare Knuckle Fighter of the Year, pay-per-view of the year. I'm gonna go with.
I can't do a drum roll.
I'm going to go. I feel like we got to finish with Fighter of the Year. So I'm going to go with 2024 Prospect.
Okay.
I feel like 2024 Prospect and the Breakout Star of 2023 are really the same thing. And so for me, I feel like that answer is the cold-hearted killer, bro. I feel like Shavkat Rakhmonov is the way to go on this one because the way that man showed up and showed out. Now, I agree with Jeff Neal completely that he was his toughest test, but dude, to go in and do what he did to Wonder Boy, bro.
Yeah.
It was something.
Just saying.
He was the only second guy to finish Wonder Boy, correct?
I feel like that. I feel like that one falls less into the prospect though, and more into the like rising star category.
That's why I
so.
said he's the breakout star, but he's the
Or, yeah,
prospect for
breakout.
2024 because that win over Wonder
I feel
Boy
like-
breaks him into where, I mean, yeah, the hardcores know who he is, but now in 2024, you can't put him
Yeah.
back in any lower fight now. He
No,
has
yeah.
to be right there. And at this point, you've got one of two options in that weight class. It's either going to be Shavkat versus the champ next, or it's going to be Bilal next to the champ, or they're going to fight each
Mhm.
other. So you got three options. There's only three ways that's going. I think Bilal should get the next title shot, but something tells me that I wouldn't be shocked to see Dana put him against Shavkat next.
Yeah. I mean, what,
That's so
what
hard to
about you,
argue.
J-Bone?
That's
I've
so
been
hard to
taking
argue
number
because,
2.
dude, I've been juggling this one back and forth because I'm kind of like I'm on the fence of what are we expecting from a prospect these days, right? In the UFC, we have so many fights every weekend. We have a fight. It's so hard to keep up with who's fighting, how many times per year, whatever the case is, right? So I narrowed it down to 3. Rachmanov was one of them, but he was my number 3. So, okay, I just got to make sure I get this fucking name right. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm switching it. Prospect of the year again, and I think I said it was last year, but it still is this year. It's still Bo Nickel. The guy spent 3 minutes and 30 seconds in the cage in 2023 in 2 fights, finished them both. And he still is not to the point where we have a notable fight, right? So the next one's got to be bigger. And in 2024, if you don't see Bo Nickel fight 2 to 3 times, he's going to be on UFC 300. That's what I heard, right? Is that the latest?
Yeah, Brundage.
That's got to be your prospect of the year. After that fight, and if he wipes this guy out like he did the past 2, what's next for Bo Nickel, right? He's got to be by December next year. We should be talking potential top 10, top 5 fight for Bo Nickel, right? So
And Cody Brundage being a Michigan guy, I mean, he's coming off a knockout too. So I mean, it's only going to build Bo up too if he blows through him like he did the other fights. Then like you said, it puts him in a hell of a spot. Corey, who you got?
It's hard to go against that.
So since you named 2 categories, I feel like they are very similar things, but I do have 2 different names because I feel like there was one breakout star of the year, and the fact that Sean O'Malley got his championship and actually ascended up and beat what was arguably the hardest stylistic matchup for him of all the potential championship holders that there was at the time, in Aljamain Sterling. So I feel like for star, I'm going breakout star. I'm going in that direction. For prospect,
He did break
though,
out. I'll give you that. He broke out this year. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and I mean everybody's looking forward to what we're gonna see coming out of his fight against Cheeto versus O'Malley coming up here. What is it, 298 or some shit? So it's coming up real quick. But that being said, my prospect that I feel like is really punched his way through is somebody I've heard Kyle give all kinds of love to here on the show. Joe Pyfer. He's really he's been that guy this year, man. He's been that guy.
I rock with Joe Pyfer.
Yeah, he came in and he's really making waves in his division now. I forget who he's matched up with at the moment. I think is it Neil Magny, maybe.
That's a good fight for him.
I believe it is.
I'll look it up. Finish your point.
Yeah, I just feel like with what we've seen out of his performances this year, his finishing ability, we see him now as a potential guy that could be somebody in the upper.
No, he's got Jack Hermanson.
Jack Hermanson.
Jack Hermanson.
And that's
to
a
quote
fun fight,
Jimmy
man.
Smith.
Yeah, and that's a fun fight. So either way, I feel like that's my boy this year. He's done in major moves, and he's now gained a pretty large following for himself just in the 1 year. So
not mad at that at all. So Corey's got Joe Pyfer. J-Bone, you've got, who'd you have again?
Bo Nickel.
Bo Nickel, and I've got Shavkat Rachmanov. All right.
No,
I
hold on.
picked
There
the
is a
last-
guy that's been flying around on these radar. I've been Googling all this. I can't get his name down ever, but it's how you say it? Tatsuro Taira.
Oh,
Guy's
yeah.
15-0.
Yep.
15-0 guy, Japanese guy running through shit. So look out for that
He
guy
had
too.
he had one real tough test this year though.
Yeah.
He got, I forget who the fight was against, but it was like he didn't look like he was just dominating like he had in all of his last ones. So, but
So
that's a
we're gonna
good.
see how that works out once it gets to the higher rankings. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's another guy you might want to watch out for. So.
My other one, if we're gonna give a quick honorable note, Benoit Saint Denis, for what he was able to do against Steamroller, Matt Frivola in that last fight, when both of them were really on that ascension course towards the top. And now I feel like he's in one of these spots where who do you put him against? There's only the top couple names, the Dustin Poiriers, the Gaethjes, and stuff like that, or maybe a Fiziev fight or something like that next. But he's knocking at that door. So that was another guy that I really thought about putting on there.
All right, which one of y'all's picking next?
Who picked the last one? Was it you, Kyle?
I did.
Or was it
Yeah.
Corey? What'd you pick? Is it back to
I
me? Or is it
had
back to
event.
Corey?
I'll go. Let me
ahead,
get
Corey.
the categories pulled up again. My phone's
So
on
far,
fire.
we've done prospect of the year, we've done pay-per-view of the year, and we've done bare knuckle fighter of the year.
So what was your guys' match of the year then, if we're gonna go in that direction?
Fight of the year, you mean?
Like fight of the year?
Fight of the year.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You got to go first since you picked the thing.
For me, I think this is where you may be correct, Kyle, in the fact that Volkanovski was able to stand his ground so much. That one particular fight really proved just how much Volkanovski was. It made him now a household name in a loss. That's how impressive the performance was. It was one of those fights where everybody kind of was like, yeah, Volkanovski's doing great. He can beat Holloway and stuff like that, but nobody really gave him the respect that I feel like he deserved. And then that fight was so good, even though he lost it, that now everybody was like, oh, Volk's my guy all of a sudden, you know? So
Speaking of bare knuckle, we got the Mohawk checking in.
Esteban, what's up, pal?
Esteban, what was your fight of the year, bud?
I mean, yet again, honorable mention for my boy and Jamal Hill. Made all the fans in Brazil walk out because he started to beat Glover's ass too bad at home. I mean, that was like, as a sports fan,
Big deal.
whenever you can send the home fans, out pouting, trying to worry about beating traffic, that's always a pretty good feeling. It sucked that it was on Glover's behalf, but felt good for my boy Jamal. There was quite a few individual fights that I feel like stood out, like you said with the John Jones. That was one of those ones where I was just sitting there and I could feel like my hands sweating, my palm, the shakes going on and stuff. I'm like, this is a huge moment in the sport and in a superstar in the sport's career in John Jones. So feel like all of those are good options, but probably Volkanovski, the way he was able to just convince everybody to now be a Volkanovski fan.
Islam Volk won. You got to clarify that.
I guess you're right. I guess you're absolutely
Islam
right.
Volk won is Corey's pick. J-Bone, who you got?
I'm riding with Corey here, man. UFC 284, Islam versus Volk. This was the fight.
Danny
So this
Smith
is one of
versus Alexander Houston.
This is one of the only fights where you see a guy step up, lose, and still hold his pound for pound ranking, right? Because he put on such a good showing that fight that we weren't unimpressed by his performance. In the words of GSP, I'm not impressed by your performance. We weren't unimpressed at all. The guy went in there and did his thing. He just didn't get it done, right? And still walked away pound for pound king. That's something to behold, man. So that's the one on my list. UFC 284, Islam versus Volk 1. I'm with Corey on this one.
Damn, we all picked the same one. What the fuck?
Yeah, because we all know what we're talking about, baby.
What's your guys' honorables? Is it?
We
is
all
it
went the
does
same
it
way.
boil
I
down-
pick. Well, let me make my pick first. So I think it's Islam Volk 1, but I mean, for a lot of the same reasons like you guys said, but I really just, to me, the fact that he stepped up, and again, how many times we've seen people try to do the champ thing and just not look good when they go up there. And for him to do that against a guy like Islam, who at the time looked untouchable, and for him to not only show vulnerability, but to show vulnerability against a guy who is fighting a weight class below him. And even at 45, I mean, the cut's not easy for him, but he's still not a huge guy. You know what I mean? So, like I said, for him to do that against Islam, that to me, and again, with the things that I mentioned when I said in my pay-per-view of the year, the atmosphere of the crowd, him doing that at home, and then all the rest that went with it. Yeah, that's fight of the year for me. As far as honorable mention though, damn, I didn't really think that.
Either. I'll try to dig one up. Oh, I got one. Kyle, you want me to come back to you? You good?
Go ahead.
What was it? UFC 290. Moreno Pantoja 2. A war, dude. A 5-round war.
Yeah.
That
That was a
Pantoja
good
ended up
one.
walking away with that one, correct? I believe.
Yeah.
But I remember that one being just that was one that I was looking for. Like, as a fight fan, you look forward to these fights, right? But when it starts to go down and you're like, damn, like round 1, this is good. Round 2, this is great. Round 3, you're like, head's going crazy. 4 and 5, you're like, dude, what the hell, right? But that one sticks out to me. UFC, I want to say it was 290.
I
That's
like
my
that
honorable
one.
mention. I like that one.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm going to do an honorable mention, it's got to be when Pereira knocked out Izzy for the belt. I think if I'm doing an honorable mention, that has to be that, because they were going back and forth that whole fucking fight, and then for him to just come back in like the bottom of the 9th kind of deal and just knock Izzy the fuck out was something nasty. Now, to be said, shout out to Izzy, because Izzy did the same thing. But what was crazy about it, and the reason why I picked this one as opposed to Izzy's knockout over Pereira, is because
when's that one this year though? That's my only concern. Was that this year?
I thought so.
What, Izzy and Pereira?
Yeah.
Well, I know
Pereira,
I know the Izzy victory was, but you're saying the Pereira victory.
Let me. I'm gonna double
sure
check. Give me 1 second.
And to clear the dead air while you're looking it up, I guess one also honorable mention, that since all of ours were on the title level, I feel like one that wasn't necessarily on the title level but was still of fight of the year mentions, Dan Hooker or Jalen Turner.
Oh yeah.
For Dan Hooker to go through.
Yeah, it was in 2020. Oh shit! No, you were right. So when he beat Pereira, it was in 2023. Either way, I thought even that, like I said, you could pick either one. So I'll flip that. I'll flip flop my pick, and for the same reasons I was just saying with Pereira. I mean, Izzy, bro, it looked like Izzy was about to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to be honest, the same thing I said with the first fight is true about the second fight. Izzy looked like he was going to lose, and then he knocked him the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so, you go back to the redemption factor of the fact that was the first win that Izzy's gotten over him. Because let's not forget, Pereira is still 3-1 against Izzy. So if we're talking trilogies, Izzy lost. It's done with. So I'm just
I don't
saying.
think we've seen the end of it. By all means, I don't think we've
I hope they fight again, because I think it's BS that Pereira never got a rematch after Izzy finally gets one back on him. And then, nope, you got to go to 205. And then what's Pereira do? He goes up there and gets the world title, is the quickest person to ever get 2 world titles in the UFC. You do that in your first 12 fights, and he's won titles in 2 different weight divisions. That's fucking nuts.
His case is such a thing of circumstance too, because he basically got brought in because of the fact that his whole past experience with Adesanya, and then for him to go in there, be victorious against him, then get the crown, fight for the belt for, had this really good fight back and forth with Izzy multiple times, leave the division, and to your point, Kyle, move up, and then now another circumstantial thing where all of a sudden it's a vacant belt, the title's out for grabs, and hey, who else is going to step in except this guy who was huge at 185 that's now already got a victory at 205 and moved up and got his chance. I mean, it's a thing of circumstance with him, dude, but he took like every chance that he was given and ran with it. So it's hard
Look,
to
the
argue.
pressure didn't scare him none. The stages that he had been on in Glory definitely helped that out. Yeah, like I said, I think that's
a good one. Yeah.
all right. So, whose turn is it to pick the next category on this one?
I picked the last one. So whoever.
So, J-Bone, you're up.
We got left. We got. We're gonna do this.
We've done. We did Fight of the Year, Pay-Per-View of the Year. We did Prospect / 2024 Breakout Star of the Year. We also did Bare Knuckle Fighter of the Year.
Okay. This one, I think this one's going to be more so on you guys because you guys are more in tune with the regional fighters. But we're going to pick Regional Fighter of the Year right here. And now I'll go first. I'll get this out of the way because I know you guys are going to go into some detail on this because you guys know a little bit more. But for me, for the things that I've seen, and I usually see it on social media and through you guys, Austin Bashy is that man, right? You really ain't fucking with him on the regional scene. I think that's a clear-cut first place out of anything. So that's my pick. Look out for that guy in 2024 doing bigger and better things because everything I've seen looks flawless. So Austin Bashy is my pick.
Yeah, out of our area, out of our region,
I can't even just say our region at this point.
Well, I'm saying when you're talking about prospects, though, I'm saying like it's hard.
It's in the comments too. I mean, shit.
They're bringing in other top level guys, to try to just give him a challenge essentially, and he's still coming out flawless in all of these fights. So it's really hard to argue with that direction, man. I kind of racked my brain when that one was posed because I figured that would be the name that would be brought up by everybody. So I kind of wanted to try to give other shine where I feel like it belongs and stuff. But really, with the year that he had, the fact that his own promoter that he's been dealing with for years basically told him, "I don't want to see you no more, dude. You're at that level no more where I can't even get you the level of talent that you deserve in fights." So it's like, what else can we?
What a problem to have, right? As a fighter.
What else can we see from a guy that's still on the regional scene that we've been lucky enough, me and Kyle, to have called his fights now? I gotta go with Austin Bashy.
Well, we all picked the same one on this one. I think Austin Bashy's up next, man. I mean, I know that all of the major organizations, not just the UFC, are looking at Austin Bashy. For him to get a win like he did in his last fight against Askar, who is good night, my man. Thank you for checking us out. But with that said, Austin Bashy has cleared out top level competition. At least the best is that we can get him out here. They've had guys from AKA. We've had, you had Askar, you had Joe the Party, who we've seen in Gamebred, Bare Knuckle, and beating guys who are undefeated from ATT out of Moldova in Icon MMA as well. So, I mean, that said, bro, he's getting wins over the best competition that you can get outside of the UFC at this point. And I think in 2024, I don't think that it's too far-fetched to say that we're going to see Austin Bashy up in the UFC real soon. I think that he has to be the regional or indie fighter of the year for us. All right. I have to pick next. Okay, so we'll go.
What's left? We got promotion of the year, fighter of the year.
Promotion of the year, and then we got fighter of the year. So
Okay.
Well, you got knockout of the year too. We didn't go through that one yet.
I didn't put that one on there, but we can do that as
Yeah,
well.
we'll throw it right up.
Promotion
I just
promotion
figured
of
that
the
was-
year. I mean, I know this sounds kind of cliche, but I feel like it's kind of hard not to pick the UFC at this point. I mean, you could give an honorable mention to PFL being the fact that they acquired Bellator, but until we see what that entails and what that actually shakes out to look like, I feel like you can't really put them over the UFC. I feel like the UFC has been the kingpin, obviously, and I feel like at this point, as far as combat sports goes, that's really kind of the way to go. See, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
I would
yeah,
say
it's
though,
hard to
if we're not
argue.
going to pick the obvious picks and all those things, I would say as far as, yep, he beat me to it. If I'm not going to pick the UFC, the BKFC has made
I love that.
like some amazing strides
Mhm.
as far as to what their 2024 is going to look like. Them going over to England, them going over to Thailand, doing all the stuff they're doing. If it's not the UFC, it's got to be BKFC. And you know what? Asa just changed my mind. I would say UFC is the obvious pick, but because of the buzz that BKFC has been able to create this year, the way that they've had the growth that they've had, I think they said BKFC 56 was their biggest event they've had to date. And if they can make this fight happen with Chris Cyborg and Christine Faria in 2024, I mean, that's going to be another banger for BKFC. So with that said, man, I think Asa changed my mind. Although UFC can be the obvious pick, BKFC, I think for the overall year, probably had the best year as far as overall growth and all that. So we'll go with BKFC.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with. I mean, like you said, if you're talking like views and I mean, the UFC is an avalanche if these other guys are a ball rolling downhill, right? It's
Sure.
hard to it's hard to compete with when you're talking combat sports. But for like you say, they have so many moments. Our whole list has been UFC guys and UFC this. We other than the BKFC guys that we added and women. But that being said, like you said, there's a reason why we felt like we needed to add that to the list, and it's not just because we've had a couple of the guys on. It's because we feel as though that's a promotion now that has garnered a position on this list where they really have. They've garnered a ton of attention now. People actually care about their events. They've done a really good job of now bringing in a viewing audience. It seems like before people were talking about them more like a spectacle, and I feel like a lot of that has gone away now, and they're talking about, I can't wait for who they announce as the next big bare knuckle fight so I can check out the next big bare knuckle card. I feel like it's less of like the going into it with like, I don't know, we'll see how crazy this is. And it's more of the like, oh damn, it's gonna be wild. Like the mentality shift that BKFC has seen throughout the year has been wild. And really they've been doing a real good job the last couple of years leading into this point, and then to kind of have this last year of continued success, I feel like it just brings them into an even bigger position in the market share that is, combat sports. But like you said, Kyle, also big shout out PFL. I feel like we'll see what happens with the fact that they got Ngannou, and Ngannou had an amazing performance in boxing, so people are going to care what happens in his fight now for them. The fact that the Jake Paul thing keeps rolling, I feel like also helps them because they have him under their banner. Like you said earlier, they have Michigan Zone, Clarissa Shields under the banner. They have a lot of potential coming into this year, signing all the talent and basically acquiring Bellator for pennies on the dollar of what was originally spoken about. Like that's a huge win for the organization to be able to bolster the roster and really build up, interest in it. We'll see how this next year plays out for them. They might be the ones that win next year behind the UFC, but this year I feel like, to your point, Kyle, BKFC did an amazing job and I hope that train keeps going for him.
Same. Look, I'm with you guys on the BKFC thing, man. They broke out this year. Like, there wasn't a lot of weeks we were on the show not talking about BKFC and the things that they're doing, and the fighter guests that we had on the show, you know, as far as BKFC has been huge this year. But for me, I mean, like you said, Kyle, cliche pick, clear number one is UFC and combat sports. The merger with TKO and WWE, big deal in 2023. Yeah. Huge money rolling in, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But clear cut number two, BKFC for me. So I'm with you guys on that, man. PFL, I think it's gonna have a great year next year, though. Like you said, we got to watch out for those guys. It's gonna be huge.
So we got my man Emerson checking in. He's checking us out from Brazil right now. He said, I speak Portuguese, so it's very difficult to understand you guys, but he thinks that Brazilians are very good. The culture is different. We live in a poor and corrupt country, so they have a lot more to fight for when they come over here, over to the States, whether you're talking about a guy like Alex Pereira or a Glover Teixeira or Davison Figueiredo that we've seen. Yeah. Or, I mean, you can go down the list, man. Like, there's been so many guys. Jose Aldo, the king of Rio. I mean, for my money, is still probably the best 145 of all time. So, yeah, we've got all the respect in the world, and not to forget about Charles DuBronx as well. We've got all the respect in the world for.
I mean, you think about the greats. You got Glover Teixeira, Anderson Silva, the Shogun Rua. These guys,
and that's not right.
For Vanderlei Silva, fighters, man. Silva. The list goes on forever, man. These guys
you can keep going down the list, man. We got all the love in the world. Just so you know, Emerson, I actually happen to have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu myself, and we're under Master Kaique Elias, who's straight from Brazil, trained out with the Gracies and all that good stuff as well. So all the respect in the world. I hope you keep checking us out and hit that subscribe button. I know they got subtitles. Sorry,
combat sports wouldn't be where it's at without the Brazilian fighters, man. So
straight up, no way to argue that. All right, so we have picked our promotion of the year.
We got two
next up. Yeah, so we got fight of the year and knockout of the year. So knockout of the year is next.
Knockout of the year. All right, let me see.
I feel like. So here's the question. Before I give my answer, do you feel like the knockout of the year, that the stakes of it have to do with it?
I do, yes.
It does, but your decision, like, you can give three picks.
Your decision.
If they're all valid, if they're all valid, I feel
no.
Like
so as far as my overall knockout of the year, as far as the knockout of the year, let me double check this real quick to make sure that I was in the right year. But I think as far as what we just said, if stakes mean something, let's see here. Okay, so then no, that wasn't this year, so that one doesn't count. So then that one's out. Okay, so if we're gonna go knockout of the year, bro, I feel like Abel Seguir, when are we getting you on the show, my guy? That's all I'm trying to say here. We've been talking about this for like months and months now. At some point, you got to make a debut here on the show. I agree. We will see him on the 13th, and stay tuned. I've got some stuff cooking for that because, hey, they gave me a microphone again. I'm going to be the voice of Lights Out 13.
Look out.
So with that said, I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this one as far as knockouts and stuff like that. My first one that I was thinking, I got my timelines picked up. I was gonna say the Leon Edwards knockout, but that was 2022. As far as this knockout, it happened later in the year, and it's got to be one of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in the last 10 years. So I feel like it's got to be this one that we just saw with Bobby Green, bro.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
To
Jalen Turner.
Jalen
Turner.
Oh, the
knocked
one
out twice.
I thought you were talking about when he
the referee clearly fell
Grant
asleep while he was doing his job.
I thought you were talking about when he knocked out Grant Dawson, but
No,
when
I was talking about when
got,
Bobby Green got knocked out by Jalen
Yeah,
Turner,
I
because
feel like
that was
that
one of the
one-
nastiest knockouts I've seen in a long time.
it was nasty because of the sense of the doctor like not stepping in at the proper
Yeah.
time. That like
He
made
was-
it.
That is
way-
definitely not a bad pick, sir, because this
Yeah.
man was convulsing after that and is
I feel
still
like-
saying thank you for not hitting me with extra shots.
I
Pretty
feel like
much.
watching a lot of people's lists. That's the one that people have been falling on is the Josh Emmett fight because of recency bias and stuff. I mean, that was a huge knockout. Don't get me
And
wrong.
if you
that
talk
was-
about stakes too, because that knockout keeps him relevant in the division too. Like
Well-
if he loses that fight, I mean, it's not like Josh Emmett's still not going to be fighting in the UFC, but I feel like
Right.
if he doesn't win that fight and winning it the way he did, I don't think he stays like in that conversation for a title shot though. But like he said after the fight, this reinserts his name right back into it.
Well, myself, I have two that are really the tops, and then I have one that I feel like is an honorable mention that nobody's brought up throughout this show, so I feel like it needs to get brought up.
Wait, I got one that I don't think anybody's brought up in this show. Damn it!
Yeah, well,
Don't fucking
mine-
take my pick, Corey.
it isn't. Well, it isn't
I-
even really truly fit the criteria, so you guys can give me shit all you want for it. But Sean Strickland knocking Israel out of the rankings of crown of his division, I feel like we can count that as one of the potential knockouts of the year. I know he didn't end up getting a finish in that fight, but
That's not a knockout of the year then.
we didn't do performance of the year and shit like that, so that's where it fits in.
That
for
could
me.
be
I had
that.
to- I
That
had
could
to
be
say-
that, but it
I
can't be
know,
a
I
knockout
had
of the
to-
year.
I know I had to say it somewhere though, damn it, and he's not going to be my fighter.
You
of the
could
year,
have just
so I had
said we didn't get to do performance of the year, so
Well,
that
that's
would
what
be
I'm
who I
saying
would
then.
pick.
That's what I'm saying. But Aspinall, the way he ran through Pavlovich, that was wild. I mean, to get the stakes that he had, to come in and say he wasn't even able to train because he was having back spasms and back problems, and then to go out there and get the knockout and now be the interim champ, which could lead into a long run for himself, depending on how the whole thing with John Jones plays out. I feel like that's a huge one in its own. And for just like nastiness sakes, I was gonna put Sean O'Malley's because I feel like it was like hey, Sean O'Malley did his thing. Or actually, I don't even think it was. Yeah, O'Malley is really. I was gonna say Chandler's foot KO of Tony Ferguson, but I think that was last year,
nasty.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like right on the border. It might have been last year. It might have been the beginning of this year. But if not, that still deserves an honorable mention because we'll be talking about that one for years.
God, I have so many honorable mentions. It sucks.
Yeah,
I
but
have so many.
but O'Malley getting the victory over my boy Aljo, the way he was able to do it and just that clean slot, one punch counter and just getting it. It was nasty. And now to be champion Sean O'Malley, I didn't think I would see it. Honestly, I didn't, and here we are. So
Is it my turn?
All right. Yep.
Okay, so I got two. I got one over here on this one. So stats wise, I'm looking at something here that mattered the most to me in 2023, and the Izzy versus Pereira fight 2, where Izzy knocks out Pereira. That had such huge implications for Izzy's career at that point. I think that was just a really big deal in combat sports, period, because we all knew if he lost that fight, he was done. He's done. And he came through and pulled it out. But my number one, and this is just from a fandom point of view, and it's my award to give out, so damn it, I'm picking it, right? Robbie Lawler knocking out Nico Price.
yeah,
I think that was such a special moment this year for the UFC, and for him to go out on his shield, man, and win it like that. We seen the video after he had the interview, or was it before the interview in the octagon? I've never seen that in UFC history. They had a whole video package for this man set up after his fight, and the presentation of that for me as a UFC fan, I thought that was something very special. So I'm riding with that one. Robbie Lawler knocking out Nico Price in 2023 is my knockout of the year.
man,
That's a very, very good pick.
so.
Let's go.
And In closing, huh, boys?
In closing, all right, we got fighter of the year coming up, male and female. It's
Yeah.
big. I'll tell you what, though. Who's
doing,
going first?
Are we doing ladies first, or are we going in that direction?
I mean, we are gentlemen, aren't we?
If we're going ladies first, and I feel like that's the right way to take this, I feel like my woman fighter of the year, there was a lot of factors that boiled into it for me, and I almost actually leaned the same direction that we went with the BKFC women's fighter of the year. I really contemplated that even, but I feel like with Alexa Grasso going out there, I know this last fight was a draw, but to show that it wasn't necessarily just a fluke victory in that first one, and to now have the chance to potentially headline another huge UFC Mexico type event, I feel like it just shined a light on her as a particular athlete in this sport. I feel like it really, like, yeah, it wasn't a victory, it wasn't a clear-cut decision in her right, but I feel like this year there wasn't some huge moment in women's MMA that really stuck out to me where it was like it's got to be her. And I feel like with Alexa Grasso solidifying the fact that she deserved that belt in the first place and putting on a draw in the second effort, I feel like that's enough to win Women's Fighter of the Year for me.
All right, J-Bone, who you got?
Hey, I'm with Corey on this one, man. 2023, she fought Shevchenko 2 times. First time, biggest upset, arguably, of the year, right? I mean, that was I remember looking at the odds on that fight, and it was like minus like 9,000 at one point for Shevchenko. There's no winning for Grasso, right? So, and then to come back, have the draw, and hey, it wasn't a fluke. And like you said, she's implemented herself into a next big event. So, as far as 2023 Fighter of the Year female, I'm going with Alexa Grasso.
Well, fuck, we all picked the same one because I feel like
we
know
what we're talking about, baby.
I mean, I feel like Alexa Grasso's got to be the pick, though, because, I mean, for her to do that against Shevchenko and then fight the second fight the way she did, although a lot of people thought that Shevchenko won, like I've said many times on this show before, if you're, like Ric Flair said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So, and I can't say that what Shevchenko did was dominant enough that I would put her over Grasso in that one. And for the magnitude of what she was able to do, and if I'm not mistaken, obviously she was the first female Mexican champion. And only, I forgot how many, they've only had a few Mexican champions, so she's only one of a few as it is. So for me, Alexa Grasso is the obvious pick on that one. I'll kick off the men's portion of it. And although my pick got knocked out this year, I feel like the way that he's rebuilt himself and now rebuilt himself in another weight division too, and is now your champion there, Alex Pereira's got to be fighter of the year for me. Like, I mean, yes, he lost against Adesanya. Yes, I understand that. But for him to rebuild himself, go to 205, blow out the people that he's blown out at 205, and then win the title in the fashion that he did as well, and basically do it all while looking like he's unscathed and unfazed. I feel like it was like what happened with Izzy never happened, and he got knocked out. And for him to get back up like that and just say, you know what, you're done, and just blow through these people and do it at a bigger weight class. Granted, yes, it was healthier for him weight cut wise, so I'm sure he had more energy. But again, you got a guy who's coming up from 185. So, I mean, again, for me, it's got to be Poatan, Alex Pereira. J-Bone, who you got?
Oh, dude, this was a tough one. All right, so I don't even like my pick. Let me just start there. I don't even like the guy, but I'm going to go, and this is going to be surprising with some people, Sean Strickland. 3 fights
in a bad pick.
3 fights in 2023. Acquired the middleweight title over arguably one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Dating performance, right? I think everybody lost a little money on that one. But Sean Strickland is the guy. He's breaking, and he's still breaking out. And that's the thing, right? He's still breaking out in the middleweight division. When he has the belt, he's going to be the underdog in a lot of these fights. And like I said, I don't even like the pick, but for me, most fights in that weight class in 2023, and I think it mattered the most in 2023. So Sean Strickland is my pick.
Asa says Sean Strickland or Bo Nickel. I think for stakes wise, if you're going to pick between those two, it's got to be Sean Strickland for me. But Bo Nickel's a dog, like we said. But Corey, who you got?
You might be talking champ Bo Nickel in the end of 2024, dude. We might be talking champion.
It ain't wrong.
See, I see what Bo Nickel says though online about people hating about his inactivity and stuff. I feel like he's really, as long as he's using this time to grow, then continue to grow behind the scenes and stuff. But I do feel like that's the one thing that's gonna hold him back is we need to see, like you were saying earlier, 2 or 3 fights this year. If we see him in the cage 2 or 3 times, enough where people start to really like pay attention, people are already paying attention, but if people are like, hey, he's co-maining this, this pay-per-view, I feel like that's when we'll be able to put him in the likes of fighter of the year and stuff. But right now, running through lower level guys and only doing it once or twice a year and doing it as quick as he is, I feel like he could have been more active. But
I think that's what it is too. Like I said earlier, we only seen him for 3 minutes and 30 seconds in the cage in 2023. He just wiped these guys out. If we could see him do that 5 times a year, that's a lot for a fighter. But if you go in there and wipe them out like that 5, like you're the clear cut number 1 contender. I mean, right? I mean, look at the way who's the guy? I can't think. Of course, I'm drawing a blank at the end. Doesn't matter. You do things like that. Look at Rachmanov. 17 up, 17 down, 18 up, whatever it is. You go out there and finish guys like that. 18 now.
Although, I mean, Bilal Muhammad keeps doing that against the top competition, and they just won't give this guy a fucking.
For some reason, we're overlooking Bilal Muhammad. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Dana White.
Who knows, man? I heard he might be dating Doja Cat, so maybe because he's dating Doja Cat can be like, "Look here, you best give my man title shot, or I'm gonna stick my fans on you, Dana White."
That man is being overlooked so bad, dude. So I mean, we're pretty soon we'll be out there standing with picket signs, like give him the shot. Like I don't. Well, what do we got to do here?
In his defense, at least a lot of people have been feeling that way for him, and I've even seen
they've been feeling that way for a while though, and they keep doing that.
Yeah, but what I feel like after the Colby fight now played out the way it did, I feel like that's the only real, like, even with Shavkat's win and stuff like that, people, like you were saying earlier, saying like it wouldn't surprise me, but that's just because the UFC does the UFC. And I feel like all the fans and all the media and stuff are like, well, Bilal's the guy, though,
Right.
So, but to round the show out, to give my male fighter of the year, I've been sitting here racking my brain because I feel like I don't want to just pick the same picks that you guys are picking, essentially. And I feel like there's 2 directions that I feel like I could have went because both of them were the breakout guys, but I just wish they would have had more active defenses and stuff. I was originally going to go O'Malley yet again because I feel like his victory, but the one fight on the year just wasn't enough for me. If he would have fought, if that Peter Yan fight would have been in this year, I feel like then I would have noted it that way, but it wasn't. So myself, I feel like the Poetan pick's great. Sean Strickland was actually the first person to come to mind. So I felt like both of those were really good picks. But story-wise, Tom Aspinall coming back from the knee injury and then coming out and looking so dominant, like it didn't even faze him. And then now to be the interim champ that, like I said earlier on the show, I feel like is going to be – he's the interim champ that may never actually face the champ, so he may be the champ. It's a weird scenario.
You don't think, though, that with what we heard from John Jones at this point, you don't think that John Jones is going to want to fight him now when he comes back?
I like the back and forth between them, but I think that as a fan, the carrot's been dangled in front of me for so long. I still just want to see Stipe get one more shot.
Oh, I agree. I want that to be the next fight, but I also feel like they keep stalling Stipe out. Like, if that fight doesn't ever happen, bro, Stipe is going to be able to retire, being the only one being able to say he beat Ngannou and DC.
Yeah, and potentially with the shot to beat John Jones, and that's the thing. I want to see the potential.
I just want it with a full camp where he's actually training for it. That's all I want. Like, because they already have screwed Stipe, I feel like, his whole career. But that's like that's a topic
that's part of what's kind of kept this fight from happening now is the fact that they keep giving him such long camps, and then injuries come up in these super long camps that it's hard to stay 100% when you're going at 100 for 12 weeks or whatever the case. Like I get your point entirely, Kyle, but at the same point,
I'm just saying I don't want to see Stipe has done more than enough to at least earn enough of whatever he deems to be enough time to get ready for that fight.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see him fight him on no fucking 2-week notice bullshit.
No, not like
I'm not saying he needs to have a 12-week camp. I'm just saying let him deem whatever time he says he needs to get ready for it and let that motherfucker train for it. That's all I'm saying. Because Stipe does not need, or I feel like he has earned the right to be able to at least be able to have a full camp. Because let's face it, I like John Jones. John Jones can arguably go down as the greatest UFC fighter of all time, but you can't say he's the greatest heavyweight if you don't beat Stipe.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
And another honorable mention. That one. My award does go to Aspinall to round my point out, but another another guy that I almost gave that crown to was Ngannou, with the fact that he was able to do everything that he did with the contract disputes. I know that wasn't in-ring activity, but the fact that he was able to grow the sport potentially so much with what he was doing with just negotiations in general. And then to finish that up with the Fury fight the way that he did, a lot of people thinking that he even pulled out the victory in that one.
I do.
Andy's ranked number 10 by the WBC now.
Yeah. I mean, his potential in star growth, I almost went that direction as well, but I feel like with it being such a UFC list base, I feel like
it could have been whoever you want, but I mean, Ngannou just hasn't fought enough in 2023 for me, so that's why I can't.
He fought
for what he did. For what he did as far as making moves, you could say biggest star, but he just hasn't.
Huge.
He just what he did is big moves for the sport, but he just hasn't been. He hasn't fought enough. But
ultimately, J-Bone, he didn't take it from me.
That's the Knockouts. The Combat Sports Edition. Anybody who watches this in post, I need to know who it is that you guys pick. If you think that we picked the right ones, wrong ones, let us know. But WWE's in Detroit. And if you're going to be at Little Caesars Arena, make sure you look out for knockouts and 3 counts, all that good stuff.
Wait. Before we go, I just want to get one more thing from you guys. I want to know what is the biggest fight you're looking forward to in 2024?
I'm so curious what they're going to announce for 300. I'm like
still waiting on that.
I want to see what happens with Conor and Chandler. I want to see if that fight happens.
Yeah, I feel like I would definitely. That's one of them. That's one of them. I feel like, as a fan, I want to see if the first fight was a fluke between Oliveira and Islam. I want to see that one ran again. I feel like there's a lot of them. Like I was saying earlier, the Stipe and I don't know, Jones fight. I feel like that's another one that's high on my list.
Oh yeah, that is too. But I mean,
that'd be
I feel like because of all the stuff we've seen with Conor and the potential of the kind of fight that we're going to get, being the fact that we know that Michael Chandler is not going to run from a stand-up fight with him. I feel like that's the one, because and for the simple fact that if Conor doesn't do his job right, dude, this could be the end of Conor McGregor too. So,
Could be. Absolutely could
like
be.
I said, I feel like that one's got the highest stakes on it.
I'm also
Like
very much looking forward to our boy Jamal Hill once he returns from injury, getting in there against
yeah,
Poatan.
of course.
I feel like that's going to be a wild one.
Can't wait to see it. And
When
I
is
hope-
UFC 300? What is that? Like April? Is that when that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
right
April.
around WrestleMania.
They got some time then. Let's get it going, man. Let's get Michael.
Let's get it
Chandler
going. Well, we've gotten the knockouts going. We still got one more edition to go, and Devin is making his return. The new and improved married version of Devin. Still got a Kangol, but he'll be joining us. We're going to be making our picks for the knockouts, the pro wrestling edition. Make sure you're checking out our social medias at KO3C Pod. If you're on Millions, make sure that you check out the merch that's coming soon, and make sure that you drop those picks for who you guys think is the ones to go with the pro wrestling end of things. Merry Christmaka. You heard Asa. Merry Christmaka. And until next time, and in the in-between time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And we appreciate all of our Brazilian friends that were checking this one out. Until next time, sink it in. Peace.